When looking at the hidden craftsmen behind the scenes, some names just seem to pop up again and again, with exceptional work under their belt. In the field of visual effects, certainly one of the biggest superstars is Stan Winston. He's created some of the most memorable monsters and creature effects of the past 30 or so years, all with the power of his imagination and the best material money can buy. After a couple of smaller productions, Winston's first big break came on The Wiz, where he served as the chief makeup artist, turning Diana Ross and Michael Jackson into new takes of the classic L. Frank Baum characters. He brought a certain style that worked with their hyper-realized version of New York. While I'm personally mixed on this film, the production values were very impressive, and Winston contributed to that immensely. Another critically panned movie he worked on at the time was Heartbeats. And yeah, it is an overall shoddy and unfunny piece of work, but Winston put his all into turning Andy Kaufman and Bernadette Peters into believable robots, and earned his first Oscar nomination for it. Winston also did uncredited makeup for Jason that ultimately went unused in Friday the 13th Part 3, and the groundbreaking effects on The Thing, which I think is some of the best monster makeup you'll see in any horror movie. However, some of his most famous work came not long after that, when he started collaborating with James Cameron. Winston was responsible for the stop-motion effects in The Terminator, doing an excellent job of bringing Cameron's nightmare of an exoskeleton sent back in time for purposes of murder to life. Every little movement was carefully planned for what was actually a rather low-budget film, and you get the feel of every gear turn. Winston also created the models for the xenomorphs in Aliens, including that amazing mother alien that does battle with Ellen Ripley. With so many more aliens in this sequel than there were in the predecessor, this was an extremely complicated shoot, but Winston managed to pull it off and deliver exactly what Cameron was looking for. Winston stayed in the alien realm by creating the title character in Predator. Making a believable monster in this war zone was tricky, but even more so with the insane production that left everybody exhausted, and developing the mechanics to simulate the Predator revealing his scary face underneath the iconic helmet. That he then had to open his mouth and growl was especially tricky to accomplish with the technology back then. However, the professional that he was, Winston pulled it off, crafting one of the most famous alien faces of the science fiction genre. After already becoming one of the biggest names in special effects, Stan Winston was given the chance to direct his own film. The result was Pumpkinhead, a horror movie that was a tad different from your typical slasher film where teenagers are brutally murdered. Featuring a strong performance by Lance Henriksen, this film has the monster come from a father's grief about his son and the anger and upset nature one might have if such an event were to occur. However, he's also a well-developed character, and we sense his regret for some of his actions and how that affects his decisions later on when he tries to stop the beast. Even some of the teenagers are not the usual rowdy and drunken ones we tend to see in films of this type. There's an appropriate creepy vibe running through the entire film, and the title creature is yet another great bit of effects work from Winston. He then began another filmmaker collaboration, this time with Tim Burton on Edward Scissorhands. Using Burton's sketches as a guideline, he had to believably turn Johnny Depp into a Frankenstein's monster-like creation with scissors for hands. And as ridiculous as the concept is, there was still Burton's idea exceptionally brought from his drawings onto the screen, and still giving Depp the ability to perform the part. Even more incredible is the makeup in Batman Returns. Responsible for turning Danny DeVito into a different version of the Penguin, Winston's makeup team went all out and made him repulsive and disgusting, and it's hard to even see much of DeVito underneath all those prosthetics. This was also the period where his two biggest contributions to special effects happened. On Terminator 2 Judgment Day, he served as both an effects and makeup artist. Like the first film, he helped bring the various Terminators to life, resurrecting the famous exoskeleton. He also applied the mechanical wirings on Arnold Schwarzenegger when his humanoid skin is ripped off, and it's very seamless. While the film is acclaimed for its state-of-the-art computer effects, a lot of the work Winston did on the film was practical on-set work, including when the T-1000 is shot at and gains a big gaping hole. Yes, that was not CGI. Then came Jurassic Park, in which Winston and his team was responsible for building the mechanical dinosaurs that our heroes either wonder in amazement or cower in fear. Steven Spielberg was very smart of how he used these still-developing computer effects in Jurassic Park, and thanks to Stan Winston and Dennis Muren, the transition from the animatronics to the CG holds up amazingly well even after 20 years. Thanks to his work on Jurassic Park and the Terminator, the rest of his career was spent on either creatures or robot characters. Probably the most unappreciated job of his filmography was for Inspector Gadget. Believe it or not, there were a lot of animatronics used on the film, mainly courtesy of Stan Winston. They created practical, real versions of the gadgets used in the movie and also created a lot of head doubles of Matthew Broderick. Even effects that might seem like they were computer-generated were done with on-set practical effects, and when it does switch to CG, it's mostly unnoticeable. The iconic helicopter hat was actually built by Winston's team, and to make sure everything worked, there was major rehearsal beforehand. I know this film is often ridiculed, but the special effects work cannot be denied. Winston was also responsible for the many different types of robots seen in AI artificial intelligence, whether it was transforming Jude Law into Gigolo Joe, or the human-looking robots who have detachable body parts. One of his last works was even doing these special effects for Iron Man, which made it look like Robert Downey Jr. was flying around the world in a supersuit. Unfortunately, Stan Winston sadly died shortly after the release of Iron Man, though he still contributed work for films like Avatar and Terminator Salvation. His contributions to the Jurassic Park films will even be remembered in a special dedication in the upcoming sequel, Jurassic World. He was definitely an amazing force in the world of special and makeup effects, and I only named a fraction of his work, so if you see his name in the opening credits of a movie, you know you're going to see some impressive work. See you next time.